Good morning. It's quite unusual for me to be live in a morning, but today I am live with Sylwia Hajkiewicz, who is a passionate export manager with 15 years of experience in FMCG. So today we've got episode 25 of International Expansion Explained. Who would believe that I would actually make it to 25 episodes with my kind of 3 weekly, monthly rhythm, but I have done. Yeah. Now, Sylwia is a drink specialist and she specializes in developing and listing wine, spirits, mixers, but also food brands in the international markets. So her portfolio of partners and customers are both from retail and also on the HoReCa side, which of course is very important in the drinks business. And they're also always looking for new products. Her experience ranges from the Baltics and Eastern Europe through to Latin America and Northeast Asia. Like myself, she's passionate about speaking different languages and learning languages and believes that this opens the door to new markets. Sylwia is Polish by birth, with I think quite a large part of her soul being British.
Yeah.
And these days she lives in Sweden. Sylwia, thank you for joining me today and welcome to International Explained.
Thank you so much. This is my first time on podcast, and I am obviously starstruck because you are a massive role model for me. So I'm really, really grateful for including me in your podcast. Thank you for introduction as well.
It's so nice to have you here. Thank you, Susie. Thank you for asking a question. I was literally about to say, please, could somebody from LinkedIn say hi so that we can see if we're actually properly live. Yes, it is being recorded. You will be able to watch this as a replay either on LinkedIn or over on my YouTube channel. So there will be options for watching it again if you can't stay for the whole thing and you've just popped in to say hi at the beginning. I hope that answers your question. So to kick us off, Sylwia, maybe you can explain to us, because you've had really a very international journey, explain to us how it was that you got into export, because as a linguist, I know that it's not necessarily the obvious way to take, even though when you look back in time, it seems like a very obvious route.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was by luck a little bit, really. Hi, everybody. I can see people joining
Yeah,
us.
I can see a few familiar faces too.
So with the export, I think I fell into it a bit by luck. I was working for a wine company in London in logistics, believe it or not, and then the department moved to abroad, back to Spain, and I was offered an international sales job, and I got a certain group of markets, and then I was doing so well that I effectively got half of the world. That was Northeast Asia. I got some markets in Europe. I got Latin America because I'm fluent in Spanish, which is very helpful. And that's how I started growing in export, really. First in wine, developing brands, wine brands internationally. Then I moved into mixers, worked for Fentimans, for Franklin's, for global brands in the UK. Some great companies, they're great products. I got back to wine for a while again, for own label, producing own label and selling internationally again. And then I moved to Sweden and I set up my own business here as an international sales consultant. And I also focus a little bit more on the Nordic markets, helping the brands to position their products here in the Nordics, because it's a very different system here, especially with the monopolies. So this is what I try to help with to the brands of drinks, mostly drinks, but also recently food as well, to position the food and drinks brands here in the Nordics.
Yeah, because I mean, the Nordics, especially with alcohol, then you have all of this kind of, it's almost like a tender process, isn't it? If I
Yes,
remember rightly.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every country in the Nordics, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, has got the monopoly system, and there is a tender process that takes everything from 6 to 9 months, and you have to submit the documentation, the forms, the analysis, the product information, then the samples, and there is tender process, and then if you win, you then continue it shipping your goods, preparing your order. It's pretty much like a regular export market, but you have to have in mind you don't have advertising in the monopoly. You can't promote your product in the monopoly system. The product is there and is being sold. So
Yeah.
you can do all of this via your importer and distributor, which I also work with and help the brands to sort of position and develop the products on this side, not only whilst they are in the monopoly selling.
Yeah. So you're effectively working as like a fractional export sales team for those brands who you're partnering with, in a similar way that I'm also working with brands to really support them across the board with all of the questions and all of the issues that they have, not just with finding the right partner, but also the steps that they need to do to be successful in those
Yes,
markets.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, I learned when we connected first, must have been over a year now,
Yeah, it's
over
over.
a year
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
I was really grateful for your contact, for reaching out, because I was a starting consulting company or an agent, consultant, fractional export manager, and I didn't really know which direction should I take it. But I had different brands that were coming to me for advice, for support, and I was like, how do I frame this? And really, fractional export manager is a very open description.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not like A to Z. This is our responsibilities.
No, and it's like, I mean, there's actually somewhere in the past, there's an article on the Harvard Business Review that actually lists that international business development manager, I don't remember exactly what they call this position of doing the export sales as a country manager, that this is one of the most difficult positions in a company to fill with the right person, because it's such a wide range of tasks. It's not purely a sales position, it's not purely a marketing position. You
Absolutely.
also have to like know some basics of the logistics, and you have to know about product registration and all of this kind of operational stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, Supro is saying export sales manager covers a multitude of sins. So yes, yes,
This is
really, Sue.
100% spot on.
But I mean, also this topic, I mean, I feel like in the last few years, especially since the pandemic, this idea of employing a member of staff
Mhm.
as a fractional person on the team. So somebody who's not actually employed in the company,
Yeah,
but who is working as an outside expert, as it were.
yeah.
This has become far more popular, but I think the term fractional is still a little bit, um, it's not so familiar in Europe, I feel. Like in the
Yeah.
US, I know that I hear a lot about fractional marketing, fractional financial, fractional sales, all of these kind of
Mhm.
things. But do you use that expression, fractional sales, when you're talking to clients, or do you just describe what you do?
I guess like when you sent me the title for our podcast, I realized, well, this is actually what I'm doing. I just didn't know that there was a definition for this, because what my company does is has got so many different points. So because also the clients are very different. You have brands that are some of the brands are really matured, where they need to
Yes,
focus or want to focus on just certain areas to develop. They already have the product, the marketing, the branding. They already have other export markets. Some of the clients that come to me are literally startups. They have never been in export. They have no know-how. They want help to literally guide them to create this commercial strategy for them for export. Often it's actually also amending the strategy they have currently, everything from the
yes,
labels, from the product. Is this product range ready? Do you have the back labels in English? How is your packaging? Can you ship to Japan? Can this product last after 4 months on the sea? So
yeah,
a fractional export manager. I think it's this definition is very wide. We do work with smaller brands, medium brands, large brands, and it really depends. It's very custom made to the client. You also have this yourself. You said the
yes,
client this morning that came to you, they have a very targeted focus. And I guess this is what we do. If the client says, I really need to focus on Asia and I want to work in this region, I want to develop there, that's what we do.
yes,
But also our job is as well to advise to the client. I have some, say, brands of gin that come to me and say, oh, we really want to develop and we think we should be selling in Spain. And I'm like, Yes, but there are 300,000 brands of gins in Spain. Why
Mhm.
wouldn't we focus on the markets that gin is now thriving? You know, everything from Eastern Europe, the Baltics, Middle East, perhaps. You know, go to the areas that are not so overly saturated. So that's also my job to sometimes say, no,
Yeah,
let's
yeah,
try a different path, which will be easier and more. You'll get more ROI on your investment.
exactly. So let's start at the beginning because I think that this is a path that both of us are quite familiar with. A company calls you, in this case, I mean, they call me with very, very similar questions. And they say to you that they would like to export. They've had a little bit of success in their home market, hopefully.
Mhm.
Although not always the case. I think, at least in my case, sometimes companies come and they say, "Well, it's not really suitable for home, but maybe for abroad."
Yeah. We're
Um,
just starting now.
yeah, we're just starting. We don't actually have the first production run yet, but we've got the concept.
Yeah,
Um, let's go through a little bit which kind of questions that companies should be asking themselves to find out if they are export ready. I mean, of course, they can always come to someone like the two of us to see what we would see as export ready and to kind of fine tune that. But of course, it's always good if they can do some of that basic work before
absolutely.
they start to talk to an expert, because it just saves so much time of everybody, and
Yeah.
it's just
But I
more.
think you probably noticed as well that when we receive a phone call from a client, a brand, a drink brand, food brand, you sort of look at their website or look even at the presentation, and you can tell off the top of your head, like, okay, this is where they are, this is what they are missing, this is to do list for them, these are the things I need to check. Uh, if you can even continue the conversation, because often, there is a very small brand perhaps, and they haven't finalized their packaging, or their packaging is not. I had the situation with a mixer brand I was working with the past, and they had a dog in the logo.
Mhm.
A dog like was a company sort of pet, and it was in the logo on the packaging. So that product was not relevant for Middle East, for example, because of the dog and all the religious connotations. So these things, when I receive the phone call or a message or a contact from a new client, I sort of, I run a quick checklist just in my head.
Yeah.
And then when we have a consultation, I have like a half an hour consultation with new companies, new brands that want to just feel if they even should embark on export journey. I
Mhm.
ask them those 10, 15 questions, like sort of checklist. Do
Yeah.
you have this? Do you have that? We can go over them really quickly, just so give
Yeah.
an idea to people who joined us together what those questions would be. Like, how would you do your own checkup when you want to export?
Let's just go through them, because I think that um, if somebody comes to either of us, then we're also potentially going to dig into them in a little bit more detail.
Yeah,
But a company should at least know which kind of things they need to be thinking about
hmm,
before they start that conversation.
yeah,
Because if they come to us for that, let's say for that free half-hour consult, they
yeah,
really want to get value out of that and not just spend the time talking about whether
yeah,
they have a suitable formulation or whether they have a shelf life
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
even possible to export.
Yeah, and I had this a couple of times when, after this consultation of half an hour, the clients had so many more questions. Some of them said, "Well, it looks like we're definitely not ready." Some of them would realize, "Okay, we're missing this, this, and that." Some of them would say, "Okay, so we have those points, and then we are ready to move to the next phase, which is the development into export. Tell us what to do, how to do this."
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very individual. I think I just run quickly through those points. You can tell
Yeah.
me, it probably is the same with you.
Yeah.
I just have a list that I made, again, that is sort of my checklist. When you have a brand of drinks, mixers, spirits, because I work with these products daily, I looked first of all what's happening in the domestic market,
Yeah.
where the brand is from, what sort of where do you sell actually? Who your clients are already? Is this Horeca? Is this retail? Because that gives a great guidance as well. Do you? who is your client, who is your target group, what labeling do you have, do you have foreign languages, at least English in your back label,
Yeah.
what does your closure, your packaging look like. I had the situation with Japan. We were selling drinks going to Japan, and there was a problem with the closure, with the screw caps.
Okay.
And these screw caps, they were opening during the 4-week trip to Japan and
Oh,
then leaking. And then you can imagine the brewing that happens at the sea under the shrink wrap. So when they were arriving in Japan, they were literally like, a mold feast.
oh,
So that was something that had to be addressed really quickly, and something that brand didn't look into before.
yeah. And
Also,
of course, with all the sustainability, especially for European brands, with all the sustainability, people are looking
yeah,
to really minimize packaging. But
yeah.
then if they're looking to export, then they have to go a little bit
Mhm.
in the opposite direction and add some packaging to strengthen the pallet corners and that kind of thing, because you don't
Absolutely.
want stuff to get broken.
Yes. And what happens when one bottle gets broken on the sea? It's the whole, pretty much the whole shipment can get destroyed, like, because the labels, the soaking. I've been myself in Nagoya opening the container that came from Europe.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like, I have nothing to say. The client is 100% right, because we had to make improvements in the product. And these sort of mistakes you can avoid by talking to us, because I already look at the packaging. I'm like, how secure is your cup?
Yes.
Have you tested it? How far have you shipped it before? What's your longest distance you have shipped it? How has it behaved during the transport? How is the
You-
shrink wrap working? Do you have boxes?
Have you practiced? Have you tried putting it in your, I don't know, outside on the balcony in the full sunshine for a couple of weeks to see if it explodes or the color
Absolutely.
changes or it goes funny and tastes nasty?
Color change is just another thing that you mentioned. Yeah, absolutely. Like, suddenly a beautiful pink drink turns out
Brown.
pale.
Yeah.
And then you have, well, in Asia, that is very, Asian clients are very sensitive about the appearance and the quality. They
Yes.
would just not buy it. So you basically wasted one pallet, two pallets, three pallets of product.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the things. Just look what the product looks like in the domestic markets, where you sell, what your channels are, what your commercial plan is for your domestic markets. Like, I want to make sure that the client that comes to me that wants to export, he has already established the foundation. Like,
Yeah.
they want to build this house into export 3, 4, 5, 10 floors, but what is the foundation looking like of your brand at the moment? Um, what about the documents, the analysis, what all of this looks like? Because the moment they want to go to Middle East or to Asia, we have all sorts of documents, the analysis, the certificates of origin, all of that. And then
And they
the
all
brands
cost
are just,
money as well. It's not just expertise, but they all cost something.
yes. Yes, and often it's time consuming. It's expensive to get those certificates. So, if your goal as a brand is to go to Singapore to sell your products in Vietnam, in Singapore, in Thailand, in Japan, you need to have, or you need to be preparing those certificates.
Yes.
Um, what are the USPs? Does the brand understand what the USPs are? What actually, if I'm going to, as export manager or fractional export manager, export support, help you introduce your brand into export, I need to understand as well what am I selling? What's so special and unique about your brand? Um, so that's another thing. What of the products are the top sellers? What do I think is the star of my portfolio? Also, what my plans are for future developments? How am I going to diversify the range going forward? Do I have any new products in pipeline? Any new flavors? Any new formats? That's also something that I would look into. Um, and what else? I'm looking at my list.
I would say
Uh,
I would say there's also that it's a little bit the elephant in the room that it's quite difficult as a consultant to actually speak to, but it's also that question of, do you have budget?
yeah.
Because if you don't have a stable cash flow and you
Yes.
don't have money to invest in an
Hmm.
overseas market, firstly, please do not take a lot of my time if you don't
Yeah.
actually have money to spend on
Yeah.
somebody, because we are also small companies who are
Yeah.
also, we also have to eat and pay bills and feed
Yes.
family.
Yes.
but also you can't enter into a market without having at least some kind of budget available for that.
100%. Yes. And I think what the brands, what I want every client or every company that comes to me, a brand owner, producer, this is what I want to them to understand firsthand, that an export, because I worked in export for so many years, sampling, even if I have, a great range of distributors internationally that I trust, that I can literally pick up the phone and say to a buyer from Latvia or from Estonia, listen, I have a great product. Would you like to try it? Let's get the listing. Even with that portfolio of clients who are really trusted long-term partners, it takes 1 to 3 months for the shipping of the samples, tasting of the samples, them traveling somewhere, going back, okay, sitting down with the sales team, actually trying the product. So that's 3 months. Then once they decide, okay, we want this and that, then it takes another month or two, placing the orders, shipping the orders. It might take from 1 to 5 months at least, even with really great portfolio of clients that I have, to
In
actually
Europe,
have the product in the market.
and that's in Europe.
That's in Europe. Yeah. Then you have to, if you think, okay, I'm going to, I want to take my brand um, into Latin America, any of the markets, working with the retail. I used to work with HEB, with Chedraui in Mexico. I still work with distributors in Peru, in Panama, Chile, who are importers, distributors. And the shipping there takes at least 4 to 6 weeks, offloading, distribution,
Yep.
then, training of the sales team. That process only is about 2 months. And the process of tasting, shipping the samples, getting the review, documentation, and analysis is easily 6 months.
Yeah.
So if you are a brand owner, producer, ask yourself this question: are you in for export for a long run? Because it's not going to work in 3 months. Maybe, in and out, quick order. This happens as well with some of the markets. I just got a client who wanted a really nice rum brand. I have a great rum partner. uh, we presented the portfolio, shipped the goods. It's literally 2 weeks time, but it's in Europe and it's sort of in and out order. But if you are in export for a long term, you need to allow 3 to 6 months at least.
Yes. And usually longer, because 3 to 6 months, it's not always going to be, not every, it doesn't matter how good your contacts or my contacts are, if
Mhm.
they look at it and say, well, actually, I'm moving in a slightly different direction right now,
Absolutely.
um, that's not the right product for me in this particular market at this particular time,
Yeah,
then it can take a long time to find really who's the right partner for both sides,
exactly.
because it's literally like matchmaking, isn't it? And
Yes.
it doesn't matter how well you as a person or I as a person get
Mhm.
on with that distribution partner,
Yeah,
if they don't have the right chemistry with the brand,
yeah.
then it's not
And
going to work.
and I think this is also the thing about us as a fractional sales manager or export sales manager, that we are always a little bit in between. When you work full time in export for a brand, you are immersed in a brand 24/7. You
Yes.
know the whole management team. You understand the process. You sit there. You hear what's happening. What the orders, the clients. You are in with the brand. When you work sort of part time, or you sort of support the brand on part time basis, maybe, I don't know, 1 to 3 days per week, or you just work on a certain project for the brand. So we're just going to place your product in Singapore, or we want to place your product in Mexico. This is our target market. You are always like just sort of tightened just to this small area that you work in, and this is my only challenge as a sort of fractional export manager, that you are never really like fully immersed in the brand. If you would work full time, you are always
Mhm.
sort of dipping in and dipping out. So it's very, very important to, I guess, make the clients understand this, that you are also your clients, like my partners in export. I've known them for many, many years. And they trust me, they rely on me. So I also have responsibility to deliver the good product, to give the continuity. To I also I represent the product, the quality of the product. So I'm like a guarantee that this
Yes.
product that I represent is going to be
Yes.
what I say it is.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just, it's your reputation as well. If you introduce a product and then you realize that because the brand is inexperienced, maybe in export,
Mhm.
that they're
Yeah,
not able to offer reliable deliveries, or they're often out of stock, or they have some other problems in their operational processes because they're not really
because
ready
they haven't do
to
their
sell.
A to Z. They haven't done it.
Then it
Yeah.
becomes quite difficult. So we got a question in. I'm not quite sure who it's from. So if this is your question, maybe you can just drop your name in the comments, because we just see LinkedIn user in our chats list. So the difference between why there isn't a clear distinction between a fractional sales leader and, say, a production lead or a brand lead. And I would say the two roles go hand in hand, don't they? Because a brand lead or a production
Mhm.
lead, this is somebody who's in-house. And as a fractional sales leader, you're probably working in a market where the company doesn't have enough revenue and
Mhm.
profitability yet to employ a full-time person who will work full-time for the brand. And so,
Yeah.
ah, okay, Hashi, my LinkedIn twin. Thank you. Um, so I think it's always an, like you say, it's always an interesting role. Thanks, Sue. Um, it's always an interesting role to be in that interim kind of position, that you're part of the company, but at the same time you're not
Yeah.
really part of the company.
Yeah.
As far as external people are concerned, you're
Mhm.
acting like you're part of the company,
Yeah.
but at the same time you still have this obligation towards your network that you
Mhm.
maybe wouldn't have in this, to the same extent, if you
Yeah.
were employed.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think you know you can because I'm looking at the question here. You can give whatever name to this position you like. You can call yourself the owner of the world, but at the end of the day, we are supporting their brands, the drink, in my case, the drinks brands and food brands, in development of their products internationally. That's really like, if I was to write the sentence, this is what I do: supporting the brands and helping them, guiding them into export markets. So it's everything from, like I said, it's all this analysis, all this review of the brand, the sort of market entry strategy. So defining the commercial plan for them, because often, like we said, is a startup brand. They have never done this.
Yeah,
Even they often have dreams and plans that are completely irrelevant because they have to amend their packaging or their labeling, or they don't have the right product, they don't have the right flavor, perhaps. We develop all the foreign channels for them, the retail, the horeca. This is another thing. Like, you work both with distributors, but you also work with retailers. It's a very different way of working with a supermarket chain than with the distributor importer.
yes.
We often define and create a marketing plan independently from what they have already for their local market, because it's a very different way, again, to market your product in Japan than you market it in Germany, for example. When I was working with the food brand, with Pandy, we went to Japan, to Foodex, and I was really pushing for creating all sorts of those point of sale materials, everything that was bags, that was games, that was flashy sort of trinkets, flower items, and the team from Sweden was a bit hesitant. They were like, "Oh, this is a little bit tacky. This is maybe not." But we were the most popular, the most busy stand on Foodex, and the customers were engaging with us. The clients from Japan love those colors. They love those trinkets. They love the games. Um, so that's also part of our job, to say it's different in export. You have to do it differently than you are used to in your local market.
Yeah, and I think that what Hashi was trying to get at was this difference between the roles and the responsibilities. And I
Mhm.
think that maybe it's best defined as, if you're like the brand lead in a kind of corporate setting, especially when it's in a very small company, then you're talking about the core values of the brand, you're talking about the main top line
Mhm.
branding. But you probably, as the brand lead in that kind of situation, or even in a much bigger corporate setting, you
Yeah.
don't actually have um, in-depth knowledge of the individual markets
Hmm.
that either the your in-house export sales team will have or
Hmm.
your external fractional sales team will
Yeah,
have.
absolutely. Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's quite a challenging position to be in because on the one hand, everybody has expectations of you and you
Yes,
have expectations of yourself. Um,
100%.
but it's often the, it's often not quite as clearly defined as it would be if you were working for somebody on a full-term basis.
Hmm. I feel like full term basis job is, um, you get this, maybe it's a fake security, but you get the security of the stable
Yes.
contract, stable job. As export manager, part-time export manager, or sort of consultant support in export, you are, like I said, you are sort of dipping in, dipping out. There are obviously relationships where you take the brand from the start, and develop it for a year or two. You work with the brand continuously, but a lot of the brands just work on a project. They want to have certain markets. They want you to, put them in tender for the Nordics, and
Yes.
then this relationship is sort of finished.
Yeah.
So it's very, very diverse. This position is changing so much. But what doesn't change, like for me, it's my relationship with my importers and distributors that I really have
Yeah.
very personal. And it's like you said, is my own. Um, is a years of developing relationships with importers, distributors, buyers of supermarket chains. They can call me. I know their children. We have really, we were partying together when I was in the market.
Hmm.
They know my situation as well. So it's a lot of responsibility that I put myself there out for the
Yeah.
brands that I work with. And I think the brands also need to understand that as well, that you they employ you maybe on a short project, but you are in this export business for over 15 years, and it's very important that you have this continuity.
Yes. So that is one of the things, because one of my next questions would be, what do you wish that companies would understand more about their international expansion and working
Mhm.
with external experts? It's that they have to be in the market for the long term if they really want to develop something, right?
Yeah, I think this is when I was putting my notes for our call. This is, I think, number one thing, because it's so coming through all the chats and conversations I have, and also the relationships I have with the clients.
Yeah.
Uh, that they need to make sure that they are in it, that they can be in it. They have investment, and they have also endurance to be in it for at least 6 to 9 months.
Yes. And
Because a lot of the clients are like, oh, we sent all of those samples, we shipped our goods, you contacted 50 different importers, distributors that I know often by the name. Some of them would say not the right timing, not the right product. Some of them will taste the range and they will say not the right product for us. Some of them will go back after 3 months and say, now it's the right product. Now it's the right
yeah.
timing for us, because I don't know, tequila brand that I represent is just tequila is flying right now in Europe. And they're like, okay, this is the right moment right now. Bring it back.
Mhm.
So they need to understand timing. They need to have the patience, and they need to make sure that they have investment for this as well,
Yeah.
because it also looks very unprofessional, I think, from the side of the producer, when you as an export manager work for them for 3 6 months, really pushing it, really getting the brand out there, and after 6 months they're like, we ran out of budget.
Yeah.
And you have started all of those conversations, you shipped the samples, you had the first feedback from the clients, maybe you got 2 or 3 orders already, and then you sort of get pushback from the brand saying, maybe we're actually not ready for export. So that would be number one. Make sure that you can endure first 9 months, because that's what it takes to develop many export markets, especially Far East.
Yes.
um,
Somewhere I remember making a video that said, how long do you need for an export project and how long is a piece of string? This famous UK saying, if somebody asks the typical like mum answer, like, how
mhm.
long does it take? How long is a piece of string? It
Yeah,
depends.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah,
But I think we are no, I'm trying right now. I'm trying to be very clear and very honest with the clients. Like we obviously make a plan, we make a strategy for export,
yes,
or we make a plan for the project, short, long term goals, and they know in this plan how long it's going to take. I tell them very openly, like, it's, if you want to get to Middle East, we have to submit this project for one of the distributors. It's going to take 2 months. Then if we are successful, we send the samples and we are through, it's going to take 4 months. For you to be on the shelves in the supermarkets, it's going to be 6 to 9 months. So I'm trying to be very, very honest with the producers right now, because I really don't want this
yeah.
backlash later on.
It's better to it's better to set the expectations at a
Absolutely.
realistic level
Hmm.
than not. And at the end of the day, you have to be true to that thing of just whatever you do, just do not screw over your distribution partners.
Yes. Yes.
It,
Absolutely. Screw
I
over.
mean,
Absolutely.
also
Yeah.
not brands as your principals. Like if you are a distributor, then don't screw over your principals either. But
Hmm.
I mean, like just treat people like humans and
Yeah.
accept that sometimes it takes longer to get stuff done and that sometimes your brand is maybe not number one on their priority list if they have other problems at the time when one of us reaches out to them.
Yeah.
Or when they reach out themselves directly, if they don't
Yeah.
receive an answer, it could just be that somebody is busy
Yeah.
because because the lady who's responsible just had a baby or because somebody broke their leg
Yeah.
or
Yeah. And I've seen this a couple of times actually, and this is when I joined a brand and I started developing the brand into export. I sort of had to pick up some of the some of the damages that have been made to the brand before, because people who start an export say, a small distributor comes from them, from a market, and says, "Oh, I'm going to buy a pallet from you, but I want exclusivity contract." And the brand is like, "Hooray, it's
10
fantastic!
years. 10
I'm
years.
going to sign the exclusivity for the market." And then, you know 2 months later, I join in and I have this fantastic distributor who has nationwide distribution in retail and in Horeca, and you have signed a contract for that often that often might not even have a target goal of number of pallets or the volumes, and you basically you locked yourself in a contract that. But that again comes from lack of expertise, and that's where we come and we say, okay, we're not doing this. What are the terms in here? Like, because we are almost veterans of this, we instantly do the checklist in our heads, and we know also what partners are right for us and what partners are not for us. It's maybe sometimes it does make sense to wait, or definitely not sign the exclusivity contract for one pallet.
Or to do a trial period, 6 to 12 months, and say, show me what you can do, show me that you're going to do all of the activities that we agreed, and then we can start to talk about making it exclusive after that time. And
Absolutely, yeah. But this sort of this sort of mistakes, or I would say is a mistake of approach to a client, comes from a lack of experience. And when we come as export managers with so many years of expertise, we would we would never agree to something like this from a get go. We would find a different solution, like you say, perhaps trial period before we sign any commitment like this. Because it also tells a lot about the brand if the brand does something like this, which is really junior approach, I think. So we, as export managers or export support, uh, we give a shortcut to a brand in a way. Like we solve those issues that they might have because they will never make those mistakes with us on board.
yeah, I mean, Kate asked how common it is to sign an exclusivity agreement for a small consignment. Um, Unfortunately, it's more frequent than people often like to admit,
Yeah.
simply because they sometimes feel like they have to have an agreement in order to do a consignment,
Hmm.
and because they often are not very strategic either in the markets that they're selecting or the distributors, and so they just sign with whoever came to them and whoever is prepared to place an
Absolutely.
order rather
Yeah.
than checking whether that is actually the right person to
Yeah.
for their company to be working with, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
And I think this is a sort of this is showing a lot, like maybe lack of experience in this first phase that I was describing. You take sort of look at the strategy and the commercial sort of plan you have for the brand in the market. And me as export manager, I translate it and I develop this plan for export. So I, I decide, okay, I will have 10 to 15 target markets. These are the right markets for me. These are the ones we're going to go for, where our product is going to sell best, when we will have the fastest ROI. We're going to work with this sort of channels, these channels, whether it's importers, distributors, or retailers directly. And we have the focus, we have the plan, we have the vision, and we go for it. And we are tackling the plan. It's not like, okay, somebody comes, can I buy here, can I buy there? You end up having your product all over Europe with different pricing, parallel trading. I've seen this sort of approach being the results from this sort of lack of expertise in the market. And then your product is losing its value. You don't know where it's selling. It suddenly is ending up in Bulgaria somewhere on the shelves in the supermarket at super low price. So yeah, we are in a way adding the value and making sure you don't make those mistakes as even if you are a startup brand.
Yeah. And I have another question. I think this is Hashi again, um, asking about digital channels catering to the international supply chains. Now, I would have an opinion on this, but maybe you would like to answer it in terms of alcohol, because I think that alcohol is something that is very specific on in terms of the regulations and stuff that are required. I know what I would say from a branding perspective, but maybe you have a different opinion to me. So I'll let you
So
go.
do I understand the question right? Are there any credible international digital channels that cater to the international supply chains, producers, suppliers, distributors? Um, Digital channels, I can't emphasize enough the value of LinkedIn for the brands. And especially like small sort of to medium brands that come to me, they're like, LinkedIn, like what do I even what? Like, do I even need? Why? And I'm like, this is your playground. This is where you have your importers, distributors, brand owners, the buyers of the supermarket chains. They
Yes.
are all there. They look at this because this is their playground. This is where professional people are meeting, watching, reading, having chats like us. Focus on that. Put your brand out there. Put the content out there. So if you're really serious about your brand, put it there. And then Instagram, I feel like it's a great tool for selling, for promoting. Um, Selling, promoting, getting your brand out there at really low cost, because you can create great content with Instagram, with different applications you have pretty much for no price if you're really a startup and your budget is very low. TikTok, I feel like TikTok is for getting your product out there, just visual notoriety, creating content, just making sure that, say, we are launching something new that is we're going to take internationally, and we won't grasp the attention of public from 25 to 45. We create the content catered to this. And again, you don't have to have a massive budget for this. You can create it at the budget if you are a startup or medium sort of level brand. So I'm hoping that I'm answering the question. Is that if that's what?
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the comments that are coming in, and I think that Hashi was meaning more on a kind of B2B level.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, from my perspective, I'm also not quite sure if I really understood the question, but I would say that for me, international digital channels, the problem with that is that if I give my product to, be it a food or a drink product or any other kind of branded product, if I give it to an international channel, I have the question right from the get-go, where are the products going? And can I control where the products are going? Because especially with food and drink, I don't want to be in a situation that I land in a market where I'm inadvertently clashing with some kind of regulations or norms
Mm-hmm.
around the brand, some kind of cultural questions. And
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want to get into the situation of having, for example, like a distributor in the market and who is then being undercut by some kind of back channel, let's
Yeah.
say.
From my experience, the distributors is my the distributor is my main source of advertising and digital activity in the market. So the distributors have got all the know-how, they have all the expertise, how to advertise the product, what's allowed, what's not allowed. You know, in some of the markets, I think it was Estonia a few years ago, there were you can't advertise alcohol. So there is like a is sectioned out in their supermarkets where the alcohol is. You can't make promotional
Promote
leaflets,
it.
discounts, and stuff like this for alcohol.
Yeah,
And so the distributor has to do it a different way. They have to enforce the horeca events, tastings, activations, and stuff like this. So I fully trust in the distributors and their activations in the market. Their know-how. Again, if you work with the right partner, you don't have to worry about going against any rules and laws. Here in Nordics, in Sweden, you can't advertise alcohol in the monopoly because the product is basically selling there. It's not. We don't even have a coolers or like fridges in the monopoly stores. So there's and every product is sold individually. So you can't sell like a pack. I think the only sort of you have bag in boxes, but you can't sell products in like packs. There is no buy to get one free promotions, nothing like that. But then the distributor has got opportunity, importer has got opportunity to do it independently, promote alcohol via different channels in the Nordics.
yeah. So would you say that it's a bit of a loaded question, this one? Would you say they're working with, because of all of these Horeca kind of events and marketing, would you say that this is like the more fun side of the food and beverage business because of all of the
I often say that I drink for living. I mean, I've been in this industry since over 17 years, I think, right now in the drinks industry, working in export, international sales. Um, I love my job. I just love my job. I love working with people because it's a lot about people. People really buy from people.
yes,
You can think like you have all this amazing product, all these great presentations, but really when you meet with somebody, when you smile, when you talk to them, when you really hear their story, they buy from you because my clients who are my importers from Japan, they buy from me. um, I've been working with them for over 10 years now, and they trust me with my judgment. They buy from you because of you, of what they think about you, of your values, how you work, because it's also very important how you work, how you approach your work, how reliable you are. Um, yeah, I think I love working in drinks industry. Is probably the most diverse, the most fast changing industry that I've ever been in.
yeah. And I think though that it doesn't matter almost which industry you're in, that element of building trust, and that at the end of the day, you're doing business between people. It's
Yes.
not companies who are doing the business, it's the people who work in those companies who are doing the business together. And I
Yes.
think that that is something that you can't, there's no shortcut to building that kind of trust and to building
Mhm.
those kind of relationships, is there?
Mhm. I'm just seeing popping some of the comments or questions popping up. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's like you
Actually,
say,
I know
we,
that
we work with
Ashley
people.
has some experience of doing some branding with an Indian beer brand.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember which one, Hashi. I'm very sorry. You know, I'm not famous as being a beer expert. If you ask me about wine or rum or something, I'm better with that. But beer, that's your side of the twin ship. So yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, we're coming a little bit to the end because we've already been chatting for 50 minutes, would you believe?
How
Yeah.
I feel like we are having our regular gossip.
It's like we're having a regular gossip, yeah, except we didn't tell any extreme stories because we're on record today. Ah, Go Away. Thank you, Hashi. Go Away. Um, Shout out for Go Away beer. Anybody who is in that business, and Hashi's branding experience. So I was going to ask you, because it's one of my kind of last questions
Mhm.
that I like to ask all of my guests. Knowing what you do now with all of the experience that you've gathered in the past 50, Hush, you want samples. You wanted to know if we were going to be distributing drink samples. Sorry, it doesn't work via LinkedIn. If we could, we would send you some samples of some of the alcohol we have at home. You'll have to wait till I come and you'll have to wait till I come and bring you some more beer. So, um, what advice would you give to your younger self starting out on this kind of crazy export journey that we have?
Phew. Not one, not two, maybe 100 advices, but like I said, I fell into working international sales a little bit by accident. Moved from
Yeah, me too.
logistics. Same with you, yes.
Yeah,
Um,
from kind of logistics and operations.
Yes, and to be honest, when I finished my degree, I studied economy in Wrocław, did my master's, and then I did my bachelor's in Spanish as well. And I was like, what next? What am I going to do with my life now? Why did I do this? And somehow everything fell into place. Um, I think I've learned a lot of lessons about especially the admin. You know, keeping every everything really tidy, making sure that every conversation you have a follow up. You take really good notes and you have really good
Meeting,
files. You know, with
meeting
contacts with your
minutes.
clients. You
Good meeting minutes.
good meeting minutes. You always send the minutes. You always send appreciation note. You really stay interested and in touch with your clients. I think um, keep this personal contact with people, because again, people buy from people. And um, like I said, some of those relationships are over 15 years old with some of the buyers from Latin America that I have, and they trust me. You know, people. I think this is what maybe is lacking a little bit today, that we are constantly on the emails, sending WhatsApp. Like even my family sends WhatsApp to me instead of just calling me. And I'm like, can we just pick up the phone and do the good old talking? You know, like it's becoming less and less personal. You know, we have Teams, but when do we meet in person? When do we sit down and have a nice chat? Like it's very fast paced these days. Like we almost forget about the value of the human touch, the human contact, the personalized part of it. You know, how are your children? What is your wife up to? You know, did you go sailing again?
How was your
These,
holiday? Yeah,
how
the
was your
simple
holiday?
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's I heard from several companies quite recently that they since COVID they've not reinstated their travel budgets because
Mhm.
they feel like, well, it's kind of working anyway, so they don't need as much travel.
Yeah.
Whereas I can definitely feel, especially with Asia, and I'm sure that
Mhm.
Latin America is exactly the same because it's
Yeah.
very high context culture. You need to be in touch with people, you need to keep visiting.
100%.
And I think that people underestimate, yes, of course, for a certain period of time, you can maintain a relationship by having things online and you can keep things going like that. But really, nothing beats that personal interaction,
Yes.
does it?
Yes.
And going
And
and spending 2 days with somebody, really to see,
yes,
because
absolutely. I think this is what we lost a little bit through COVID as well, that people stopped traveling, you know, as uh, this, you know, market visit, going there, showing your face, talking about the brand, meeting with people, leaving that mark in their memory. Like, okay, it's not only just another label, another product. It's actually a person behind it who is passionate, who loves the product, who talks about it. You know, we drink, we actually consume the products that we buy. You know, it's the memory of the taste, but also the story of the brand. You know, if it's a family story, what's the journey of the brand owner?
yeah,
Let's not forget about all of this, I think. And
yeah.
we definitely should travel. I think should go back to meeting and face to face again.
And I mean, I don't want to drag things into the negative right at the end, but if if somebody wants to, let's say, pull the wool over your eyes and kind of present a false picture to you, you can do that for an hour at a time on some kind of video call. If you really want to, you can do it, but you can't do it in the case of, you can't do it in 2 to 3 day visits. If somebody, or in a 1 to 2 day visit, even if somebody
Absolutely.
wants to spend like all that time with you, then they get a real feel for how you are and how
Yeah,
you're running your business, and like you say, what you're passionate about, and how important, whether you're really hungry to work with this brand because you believe in the brand and their values.
100%. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. your your thirst and love for the brand, this really shines through, and a lot of my clients say this, like they see how I treat their brand really personally. I
Yeah.
also don't work with all of the brands like that come to me, because some of the brands I just don't feel this connection. And if I do, and when I do, I I have almost personal attitude. It's like my brand is like my child. I feel responsible for it. I feel proud for working with this brand. I you often, with yourself, you often work extra hours, you work the weekends, you pick up the phone and in the evening on Friday have a chat with the buyer, in the morning at 7 a.m. because it's Asian time, or it's a Latin American time. So yeah, the personal touch is, I think, people work and buy from people.
Yeah. And I think that on that note, we will close it here. It's been a great hour. Thank you very much, everybody who came and who attended. I can see quite a few people. I can see Hashi and Kate. I can see Susie Winton. I can see Sue Bro. So thank you very much for being here. We always appreciate having people. It's always great when there are questions in the chat and people interacting with us, because it helps us to direct the discussion into directions that are interesting for you as
Mhm.
well. So thank you very much for that, everybody for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much.
Thank you, Sylwia, for taking the time. I know you've got a flight to catch later today, so it's important to make sure that we finish on time. Hashi is still looking out for samples, but he'll just have to wait until I get to Hong Kong next time.
Thank you
Yeah,
so much for this opportunity. It was loads of fun. My first podcast, and what a great experience.
thank you. It's been a pleasure having you here. Anyway, take care, and we will be back with, or I will be back with episode 26 in about a month's time.
Thank you so much, everybody.